It's my nerd world, and welcome to it, a Star Wars show. This week, listener feedback. Somebody challenges me on my idea for a Reylo-centric live-action Disney Plus show, claiming I'm retconning Reylo. Maybe. I'll give you my thoughts. We have some leaks, Andor leaks. Nothing major, but still interesting nonetheless. Kenobi may have gotten itself a composer. We'll tell you who that is and share an interview that they did with Anthony Breznican, formerly of Entertainment Weekly, now with Variety. Hayden Christensen talks about how he prepped to play Anakin Skywalker / Darth Vader once again, and also how Obi-Wan Kenobi himself, Ewan McGregor, did the same thing in prepping to play Obi-Wan Kenobi. Lots to get to on this week's show. So glad you are with My Nerd World, a Star Wars show. Let's get to it.
Nothing will stand in our way.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
I will finish what you started.
Who are you? I'm no one.
There are stories about what happened.
It's true. All of it.
The Force. It's calling to you.
My Nerd World.
Just let it in.
It is a Star Wars show here on My Nerd World, and I'm your host, Jon Justice. I hope you are doing well. I don't talk about my socials very often on the podcast, but I suppose I should probably mention them since everybody seems to be on social media, for good or bad. You can find me at Jon Jon Justice on Twitter, and also on Twitter at The My Nerd World. At The My Nerd World is the one I probably use the most when it comes to things that are not my full-time show related. You can also find me on Instagram, the Jon Jon Justice, Jon Jon Justice on Facebook, and I'm also now on TikTok, where I'm talking about my science fiction novels and other things, like my dog barking at turkeys in the backyard. That is at the Jon Jon Justice again as well. So at the Jon Justice on TikTok. If you are on TikTok, I would love to have you follow me there. And like I said, I do focus quite a bit on my space opera series, of which I do have some details coming up a little bit later on in the show. Unfortunately, I had to delay the release of Battle Planet by a few weeks, and we'll talk about that at the end of the show. Got a lot to dive into this week here on My Nerd World, so let us not waste any more time, and let's go ahead and get right to it.
When I found you, I saw raw, untamed power. And beyond that, something truly special.
It's very true. We have a very special day coming up. Actually, a couple. Going to kick off with May the 4th be with you. May 4th is on the way. Star Wars Day. Last year's Star Wars Day was a massive disappointment, and I think it's partly the fault of us fans for hyping it and expecting we were going to get a lot of stuff, and we didn't. I'm not expecting anything major on this May the 4th, simply because we have Kenobi right around the corner, and more specifically Star Wars Celebration, of which we're going to be getting more than likely a ton of details. This week, there was talk of I don't want to say revival's not the right word. There's a new video game that's being worked on. There was a video game that was in the works that got shelved, and I think it was a year or two ago now, Project Ragtag, and we talked about it quite a bit on the show. It was to be helmed by, or at least the new video game is now going to be held by the woman who was in charge of the video game Uncharted, which is now a major motion picture as well. So she's now on board for this new video game they're developing, which apparently is very much linked to the old video game that was being worked on called Project Ragtag, which had a bit of a Uncharted vibe set within the original trilogy era. So this happens a lot before we get a Star Wars Celebration. The leaks begin to come out prior to the event. And so this seems to be something that we'll probably get a major announcement for at Star Wars Celebration next month. May the 4th will not go by without us getting something, however. Jordan Mason on Twitter, who has been pretty reliable in reporting things in the past, tweeted out that on Star Wars Day, we will be getting Disney Gallery, the Book of Boba Fett to Disney+. That should not come as a shock to anybody. I was expecting a Disney Gallery, and it makes sense that that would get released on May the 4th with plenty of buffer space between it and the Book of Boba Fett. Very much looking forward to watching the Book of Boba Fett Disney Gallery. I absolutely love watching behind-the-scenes making of Star Wars or anything for that matter. I just love the creative process. And my rewatch right now, what I've been watching Star Wars related, has actually been a rewatch of the Book of Boba Fett. Now, I've seen all the episodes a couple times already, but I started it back from the beginning, and I'm watching it again. And it's going to be a theme that we'll get to a little bit later on in this week's episode, the theme of redemption. Holly on the Full of Sith podcast made a really interesting point. She said that she very much enjoyed the Book of Boba Fett and liked the storyline that a character with a dark past can decide to change and become something different. And, of course, this really surrounds a lot of the commentary around Book of Boba Fett, that this was a character that a lot of people envisioned in a very different way, and they took a much different approach with the Book of Boba Fett with this character. Talked about it at length on the show before. I think a lot of this had to do with the fact, just to sort of give a brief synopsis of my feelings. I think a lot of the change in Boba Fett's character from what we knew of him, for as little as it was, prior to the show, was because The Mandalorian really stepped in and did what I think Boba Fett would have been had they launched The Mandalorian with Boba Fett as a character. So instead, they took this approach of, let's retool the character and show the story of an individual who can decide to make a change in his life and sort of turn away from his darker past. And on a second watch, now that I know what we're getting, right? Now that I know what to expect, having seen the Book of Boba Fett already and gotten a little distance from it, not going to be surprised by anything, I've very much been enjoying it on a rewatch and will probably, be watching it again in the future. It was not a show that I really expected that I would return to, but I'm finding myself very much enjoying it, knowing what it is and having already been exposed to it. I've been holding off because right now I'm on the episode, the full Mandalorian episode of it. So I've actually been holding off on that one until this weekend. So, all right, let's move ahead. We do have a rumor report from Bespin Bulletin. Nothing earth-shattering here. If you want to be completely spoiler-free of Andor, I would skip ahead just a couple of minutes. But again, this is nothing more than a rumor of side characters that will appear in the show. So I feel comfortable in sharing it with you and not spoiling too much. But we will put it under the sort of official category.
The hyperdrive is leaking.
Bespin Bulletin wrote, I was first told of an Imperial Royal Guards appearance in Andor well over 6 months ago, but thought nothing much of it, as the information didn't come from a regular source. However, it's now something I've heard of, and heard of off and on for a number of months following, but not from my usual trustworthy sources, and that is why I'm stressing to take this information as a rumor. The reason I'm running this piece as a rumor is due to the recent reporting from Star Wars Meg, previously reported on the Hutts that the Hutts would appear in Fett, who has also heard that Mas Amedda is making an appearance in the upcoming Rogue One spin-off series, Andor, and his scenes are set in the present day and are not flashbacks. So Mas Amedda was in the prequel trilogy and was right hand to Palpatine, and featured fairly prominently in the in the prequel trilogy. Amedda was vice chair of the Galactic Senate and became the Grand Vizier of the Galactic Empire once Palpatine declared himself Galactic Emperor. The setting I was told the Royal Guards appear was that of the Senate, so with Meg's report and my information, the two seems to support the other. They do stress in the Bespin Bulletin report, and I actually thought this initially when I heard that, was that, okay, well, are we going to be getting the Emperor? I'm kind of guessing we'll get the Emperor in some capacity. Whether or not it's Ian McDiarmid returning to the role or whether they do something CGI that's more of a holographic image and perhaps just him providing the voice. Having the Royal Guards there, the Red Guards, would make sense. Bespin Bulletin points out, though, that Masamita in the comic books did have the Red Royal Guards along with him as part of his entourage. So perhaps if we're not getting Palpatine, then we get Masamita as kind of a proxy. They also say that this could be taking place within the Senate on Coruscant, and that would not surprise me either. I'm very much expecting the Andor series to be very grand in scope. As I've reported before on the show, this is not a show that was shot exclusively on the volume, right? The set with the LCD screens. There was a lot of location shooting. They've been working on this show for a very, very long time. Given the popularity of Rogue One and honestly, the lack of Andor stuff that we've seen and how long they've spent working on it, I'm anticipating this is going to be a huge show. A massively large-scaled, in terms of coverage of the galaxy, show. And I kind of have this expectation, without any evidence, that Palpatine... It may make some sense to include Palpatine, perhaps, and I know this may sound weird, but more so in the live-action shows that take place post-Return of the Jedi and what we've seen of The Mandalorian so far, leading into The Rise of Skywalker. To have him in both timelines within shows available on Disney Plus wouldn't make kind of a bit of a Palpatine overkill. The argument against that, which I also think is a good argument, I'm making both of them, would be Palpatine showing up in Andor makes a little bit more sense, and having Snoke in those series that are post-Return of the Jedi leading into, not The Rise of Skywalker, the sequel trilogy and The Force Awakens is what I meant. That would make a little bit more sense to me. And I'm really hoping that we see that. I've talked about this before. I really do hope that when we get into these shows, Ahsoka, Mandalorian season 3, that we really do see the formation of the First Order and even a Snoke appearance. I think that would go a long, long way to filling in, some of those things from the sequel trilogy that perhaps some of the fans, not that I think we need to cater to the fans, but I think there's opportunities here where you could really elevate the content of the sequel trilogy by providing a few more links. And Disney has obviously shown their desire to go and do that with what we've seen so far in the Book of Boba Fett and Mandalorian. All right, moving on. Another spoiler report. This is not a spoiler, though, of anything show-related. Making Star Wars is reporting, and this is also from Bespin Bulletin, that new footage from Obi-Wan Kenobi will be released within a week. And this was a couple of days ago. Possibly even the next few days. So by the time you are listening to this, we could have some new Kenobi footage. There was I think Total Film or Empire Film, one or the other, released an article about Obi-Wan with a photo on the front. Nothing really new. Seems to show Obi-Wan Kenobi in a setting that we've already seen him in the trailer of the city described as Reno. I know we have an official name for it, but I forgot what it was. The report doesn't mention any details of what's shown in the footage. It's mentioned that it lines up with what they've been told and reported on the series. The report also adds that the footage is official. It's not leaked from the Kenobi set, like what we talked about, a Vader in Kenobi video that made its way onto YouTube a few weeks back. What's very interesting is that the report only refers to this promotional release as footage, and the belief is it's not a new trailer. This leads Bespin Bulletin to think it's possibly some sort of TV spot or even a featurette of some kind, though the report doesn't rule out that a new trailer coming down the line. They don't believe what's set to be released within the next week is a trailer, and add that a lot on the table to release. The outlet was the first and only outlet to accurately report the release date for the Obi-Wan Kenobi trailer, February 9th. So I think it's safe to say to raise your hopes of new footage delivering within a week. And look, this makes sense. Obi-Wan Kenobi drops on the 27th. It's the 22nd right now. We've only gotten a teaser trailer. And look, in hindsight, that teaser trailer did not show much. Certainly didn't show much of Kenobi. I'm expecting something along the lines of a full-fledged teaser at some point in time to really elevate the hype and give us a bit more story details. This report obviously thinks that it's not a teaser or not a trailer, but I think that a trailer would make the most sense to me. So we'll see what happens here within the next week. There was a promotional banner for the Kenobi series that hit the internet yesterday and has actually made it out onto store shelves in some locations. And basically, it's sort of like it's a long poster, and it shows Obi-Wan Kenobi has a artwork that shows Kenobi and Vader facing off again, very reminiscent of the official artwork that was used for Revenge of the Sith, showing Anakin and Obi-Wan, facing off on Mustafar with the red lava in the background. This was interesting because it had blue glowy behind it, which I thought was rather curious. Also had a profile artwork of Vader as well. But the small artwork image between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Vader in the banner did have sort of blue glowing behind the two characters. And we know in one of the shots that we got from Entertainment Weekly, it showed Obi-Wan in a cave that was that had a blue cast upon him, with many people, including myself, speculating that possibly this could be Qui-Gon Jinn's Force Ghost talking to Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, to that, this is also interesting. Also this week, Liam Neeson was interviewed and said that he would be interested in returning to play Obi-Wan Kenobi, but really only if it was on the... Well, not only, but he would prefer it to be on the big screen. Now, a lot of talk has happened around this little news nugget from Liam Neeson, of him saying, being asked about his possible appearance or just returning to play Qui-Gon Jinn. I may have said Obi-Wan Kenobi, my bad. It's been a long day. I've done double duty this week where we're filling in on another station in Miami, and I did way more radio than I usually do in a week this week, so my brain's a little bit fried on this Friday afternoon. Liam Neeson said, he was be open to returning to play Qui-Gon Jinn, but would prefer it to be on the big screen. It sounded like a redirect to me. When you consider, like, Andrew Garfield lied to so many outlets, spoiler alert, that he wasn't in Spider-Man No Way Home, and we know how that turned out. Plus, Liam Neeson has just recently done some television in Europe. And he's doing a lot of, like, really B and C level movies right now. So I still think it's a very good bet that Qui-Gon Jinn with Liam Neeson playing the character will be in the Kenobi series. And I think this was just simply a complete and total redirect. All right, moving on. We have some news to get to, including an interview with what was announced this week to be the Kenobi composer.
We are the spark that'll light the fire that'll burn the First Order down.
And I am pleased to share with you the interview conducted by Anthony Bresnikan, formerly of Entertainment Weekly and now with Variety. The first woman to score a live-action Star Wars project teams with John Williams, who contributed a new theme for Ewan McGregor in the Kenobi series. Composer Natalie Holt just received a greeting card in the mail. It was expressing the gratitude for the work that until now has been secret from the world. It's Darth Vader surrounded by stormtroopers, she says, showing off the cover during a Zoom call, and says, "We do everything for him, but does he ever say thank you?" And I thought that was such fun. I love it. Now, the Vader card came from the showrunner for Kenobi and director Deborah Chow, congratulating Holt for completing the music to the upcoming Disney Plus series. But Holt, who composed the ticking clock themes to Marvel's Loki series, she'll next be working on DC's upcoming Batgirl film, says that she is the thankful one. Her work on the show, which can now confirm publicly for the first time, put her in collaboration with John Williams, who has written an original theme for Ewan McGregor in the series. Obviously, I'm just thrilled to be mentioned in the same breath as John Williams. Holt says, "It's been exciting and overwhelming at times because I'm such a huge fan. I want to pay respect to the history of it and do it justice as well." Holt is the first woman to score a live-action Star Wars project. She spoke exclusively with Vanity Fair about what fans can expect to hear when Obi-Wan Kenobi debuts on May 27th. I'd be curious what her age is. She looks super young, like in her 20s. Although, I'm getting older and everybody looks young to me now, so. So Vanity Fair asks, I know your involvement has been secret until now, but have we heard any of your work in the teaser for the show, or is it still under wraps? She says, no, it's still all under wraps. The music in the trailer is Duel of the Fates from John Williams, 1999 Phantom Menace. What can you tell me about your approach? How did you begin developing the music on this show? Well, I think I've always been huge into Star Wars. I watched the original trilogy with my dad when I was 5 years old. Holy cow, she is not that young. She's my age. She looks super young in the photo that I saw. Crazy. I watched the original trilogy with my dad when I was 5 years old. So the music from John Williams basically narrated my childhood. E.T., Raiders, Jurassic Park. So yeah, my starting point was just being a huge fan of the music for the show already. I'm a violinist and I come from an orchestral background, so I've been able to do something on an epic scale with these big forces. How did you and Williams come to work in tandem? Obi-Wan is a legacy character that Jon hadn't written a theme for because he died quite early on in A New Hope. It's the only legacy character that he hadn't done. So he spoke to Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy and said, I just want to write Benny a theme. So who can deny him that? And he did. He wrote the Obi-Wan theme, and it embodies the spirit of the show entirely. John Williams is... the guy is incredible. There's no doubt about that. I am really tickled with his love of Rey and Daisy Ridley. If you've watched any of the behind-the-scenes documentaries about the sequel trilogy, and specifically the Rise of Skywalker saga documentary, which is fantastic, he gives Daisy Ridley, John Williams does, the original handwritten musical notes, the sheet music for her theme, and has been very, very vocal at how she is his favorite character. You can just see there's a love that John Williams has for Daisy Ridley and Rey. It's pretty cool. How does his contribution fit with the broader music you created for the show? For me, the tent poles are set out by John Williams. There are elements to the show that are new and fresh, and I've been able to have my own interpretation with the elements that I can't reveal. So it's been glorious working with my hero and bringing my own voice to the show. How would you describe his new Obi-Wan theme? It's reflective, and it's just entirely appropriate. It distills what the show is about in just the perfect way that John Williams can. It's wistful, but there's an element of hope to it. I'm doing something new, and I think people are really going to be blown away by it. What ideas did you begin to put together when Deborah Chow first approached you? How would you describe your process for Obi-Wan Kenobi? Deborah and I met when she flew to London, and we spent 2 days watching through the material. I wasn't fully cut together at that point, so we just spent that time together and talked through the journeys of all the characters and what needed to happen. We kicked off with a 2-day intensive immersion into it, and Deborah just has done a fantastic job. And obviously, Ewan's just delivering the performance of his career as well. I'm very excited for people to see it. You mentioned that you're a violinist. Do you perform in the score, or are you strictly composing? I do, actually. I'm singing and playing the viola. I am playing some violin in there, too. So, yeah, I'm performing the score. After that 2-day immersion, what was your writing and recording process? I tried to come up with themes that I feel are catchy. I had some time to just interrogate what the theme should be for each of the characters and then bring them to life and put them to picture. Getting to record here in LA on Fox's Newman scoring stage with the most talented musicians in town has just been a dream. I'm working with the same orchestra that John Williams uses as well, and all of his key players were playing for me. Obviously, you want to fit into the Star Wars universe, and the themes and the music come before, but I'm really struck by what TV shows you've done in terms of breaking away from tradition, like the compositions for The Mandalorian. How would you characterize the balance of what you've tried to accomplish? I think it's an emotional score, and it does have its roots in Star Wars tradition a little more than The Mandalorian does. We've had a collection of 250 horns and flutes, and I used this hunting horn in the score. We're also blending the orchestra with some modern synth sounds as well. It's definitely what we're used to, and a few new elements. There are quite a few dark side characters in the series. We have Inquisitors in the show. Vader turns up at one point. What instruments are best for conveying dark side themes? Well, there's the hunting horn. That sound that's just shudders. You hear it and it just does something. It stirs your guts. It's so haunting. And I've been working with Brian Kilgore, the percussionist, who's got these incredible, unusual instruments that's jarring rhythmic texture that we've been playing around with. What are some of the other collaborators on Obi-Wan? I was lucky enough to work with Chris Fogel as well, who is Ludwig's engineer and engineered The Mandalorian. He engineered my music and recorded it with me. I was mixing it at Ludwig's studio. I'm a huge fan of his work as well, so it's been great to meet him as part of this journey. Do you incorporate any cultural or musical influences from the real world? It's always a thing in Star Wars, finding that Dixieland piece in the cantina, and it's taking things that we're familiar with on Earth and giving them a twist. So there's some of that with some of the instruments and some of the themes that we hear in the series. There are some new worlds that we are introduced to coming up with the sound. Each world has its own character. What are some of the musical genres that factored in there? There are some Latin influences in one of the planets. There's some Thai, Hong Kong, some sounds that are more Eastern. Definitely you take flavors from around the world and then try to turn them into something otherworldly. You're on Star Wars. You're scoring a planet. It has to have scale. Can you tell me about the musicians you've worked with during your recording phase? Because I'm a violinist, I've been a huge fan of James Ennis, who's a Canadian soloist. I've been wanting to work to play with him and on a score for a long time. He happened to be in L.A. doing a concert, and he came in and played a few violin solos. He was a big Star Wars fan growing up. Those emotional violin themes that I've written, you'll hear in Episode 1. What are you in the process of right now? I got to the end of the last episode. I've only just finished. It just feels like I found my voice. It's taken a while to get there, but because you feel this paralysis at the beginning of like, oh my gosh, it's Star Wars, I feel sad to be stopping, and I want to carry on. Again, I really enjoy these behind the scenes moments and hearing the creative process of somebody who is involved in something that I'm not a part of, like that world of being a musician. I've tinkered around like in GarageBand and made some songs on my Mac, but I mean, that's the extent of my musical background, apart from when I was in junior high school and I played clarinet, and I've forgotten how to do that at this point in time. So I'm always fascinated to hear other people's creative process, especially in creating something that I'm not all that familiar with. Speaking of the creative process, Hayden Christensen, according to this article from Entertainment Weekly, binged Star Wars animated shows to prepare for Obi-Wan Kenobi. Often when an actor is taking on a new character, there's a mountain of prep work that needs to be done. It could be to familiarize oneself with the original source material. It could be researching the character. Could be a long conversation with the director and a backstory about motivation. But what about when you're returning to a character that you already played, albeit 17 years ago? This was the situation for Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen. So, did the man playing the title character go back and watch any old Star Wars films to reacclimate himself with Obi-Wan? Well, we're going to find out in this article. Any of the old films, try all of them, even the ones his character wasn't in. I watched them from start to finish, said Ewan McGregor. All 9 movies just to get back into that world. Sorry, Rogue One and Solo, looks like you didn't make the cut, the article says. It turns out that this was the first time that McGregor watched the prequels since they were originally released. It was interesting to watch our films because I hadn't seen them since they came out, not at all. So it was cool to see and interesting to watch them and enjoy them without all of the noise that was around when they came out. Now, that's not the only prep that McGregor did. He also delved into the entire genre. I started reading science fiction. Wish I had his address. I would have sent him EMBARK. He reveals Ian M. Banks is a Scottish writer, and I started reading his science fiction novels. I kind of didn't do it the first time. I did absolutely study Alec Guinness and watched the original 3 Star Wars films back when we did the first one. But I didn't really think about the genre, and it's not something I would normally do. But this time I did. I got jazzed about being back in space because I really love it as a movie watcher. Now, while McGregor went back and watched the entire Skywalker saga, Christensen went even deeper into the Star Wars canon. I went back and rewatched all the films, says the man who will once again be playing Vader behind the mask. And I got into the animated shows, The Clone Wars and Rebels. Can't say enough good things about Rebels. There's obviously a lot more Anakin and Vader content to consume in those series, which helped give the actor even more perspective and material to draw upon in terms on both what his character has been through in the years leading up to Obi-Wan Kenobi and what is on the horizon after. Christensen says of binging Clone Wars and Rebels, it was interesting. They did a lot with these characters in those shows, and they did further explore the relationship. There was interesting stuff there to learn about. It was great fun getting to go back and re-immerse yourself in this world that just continues to grow and become more and more vast. That's fascinating to me. I can only imagine what it must have been like for Hayden Christensen knowing he's going to be playing Anakin Skywalker Vader again, and then going and watching the Clone Wars and Rebels, especially the Clone Wars, seeing the Anakin character and how fleshed out that character became. Very, very interesting. That would be a fascinating conversation just to talk to him about his experience watching that, having played that character, having introduced that character to everybody, and that cartoon character, that animated character in the Clone Wars being based off of him, although, different, right? That was a different, it was Anakin, but the portrayal there was really expanded and grew quite a bit during the Clone Wars. The last little portion of this piece says, with the news already announced that Christensen Vader will be reappearing or appearing in the Disney Plus upcoming Ahsoka series, right? It seems his time studying the animated series was indeed time well spent. Some might even call his research impressive, most impressive. Insert Entertainment Weekly dad joke there. I think we're all hyped for Obi-Wan Kenobi. I can't wait to see some more material. I've watched the teaser, because it really is a teaser, several times. But after that particular teaser, while it really grabbed me the first time, you watch it again and you realize they didn't really give us a whole lot, and certainly not a lot of Obi-Wan Kenobi in it. I expect that whatever footage we get and a full trailer will give us a sense of story for the casual fan. The other one was just a taste. That's what teasers do. As always, what are your thoughts? Leave a comment on YouTube if you're listening on YouTube. And again, my apologies for those that expect the video. Like I said, I've been just really swamped wrapping up Book 7 in my series, in my space opera series, and it just takes time to do the video portion of it. It will return when the Obi-Wan Kenobi show launches, but until then, for the next few weeks, it'll still be just the audio-only version. So leave a comment up on YouTube, or if you're listening to it via podcast, it's available on all your favorite podcast platforms, iTunes, iHeart, and the list goes on, and Spreaker, list goes on and on and on. You can email me, though, talkshownerd@gmail.com, or, like I said, leave a comment up on YouTube. All right, got a lot of listener feedback to get into this week, including the retconning of Reylo, and how one particular friend of this show disagrees with me, surprisingly.
I need someone to show me my place in all this.
All right, first we hear from Javier, who is responding to the episode where I discussed the possibility of Obi-Wan being released in theaters. And again, I still think that there's a chance that may happen. And Javier writes, hi, John. Definitely I'd go to the theater to watch the Obi-Wan first 2 episodes. Even though I love watching at home on Disney Plus, not the same. Even more, I think it'd be a good idea to present all the episodes in theaters, like a new trilogy. If I'm not wrong, there are 6 episodes in total, so 2 episodes by release. I'm so excited. Yeah, and this was stemming off of, for those that may have missed that episode, there was a tweet that was put out by somebody in the know. I think it was a voice actor who talked about the possibility of where you could go and see Obi-Wan Kenobi and people at Celebration watching it and elsewhere. So I went down the speculation trail that perhaps they could release those first 2 episodes that we're going to get on the 27th of May in theaters as well. Haven't heard anything yet. Kind of would imagine that a month out, theater owners may be aware of this already and it would have leaked, but you never know. All right. Next, we hear from Leela M. responding to my most recent Reylo-centric podcast that I've done here on my Nerd World. And she writes, "It's not really a matter of opinion. You're just reading the cinematographic language." I'm butchering that word. It's a long one. "And coming to the obvious conclusion. I get that some angry guys who like Star Wars get weirdly emotional about this and really want to deny the obvious. But when John Williams starts playing the notes to Romeo and Juliet as Kylo Ren carries Rey bridal style back to his ship, there's not much left to interpretation." Yeah, man, and I will continue to tip my hat to the early Reylo adopters out there that were, talking Reylo from the drop of the hat of The Force Awakens. I was not there at the time. I'm certainly there now and was certainly there after The Last Jedi. All right, Falcon Eddie writes, "Disney could do a series about Rey returning to Exegol to find Ben in the world between worlds. I could see Adam Driver signing on to the very successful television version of Star Wars instead of a movie. Does anyone else think that Rey's white costume looks like a restyled, reconstructed version of Leia's white dress from A New Hope?" Yeah, I've actually thought about that as well. My favorite portrayal of Rey is in The Rise of Skywalker. I mean, I love Rey in what Daisy Ridley did in The Last Jedi, but top to bottom, if I had, to choose which Rey I love the most from which film, it is the Rey from The Rise of Skywalker. From her outfit to her performance to the dialogue to the action, give me Rey from The Rise of Skywalker, over the other two, even though I absolutely love The Last Jedi. Falcon Eddie goes on to say, "John, can you write a Reylo series book? Just change the names around. Reylos already know your channel, so if you wrote a Reylo-inspired novel series, you'd sell plenty of books." And as I mentioned on the last episode, because I think that Falcon Eddie, thank you for the email, had made a similar comment, I do have another series in mind that's more sci-fi fantasy that will more than likely include something along those lines of a Reylo style love story. There is a romance in my EMBARK series. I handled it in a very different way. Not your typical romance of, well, I don't want to spoil anything. I handled it very different in my EMBARK series because I wanted to. I didn't want to really get into tropes that had been done before. I wanted to do something that I wanted to write about in terms of a romance. So I handled it differently. That being said, when I do go to write another series, I'm definitely going to have a romance in there, and it will be different, but Reylo is in the back of my mind of how I want to craft it, with it playing out over multiple stories. So that's definitely back there. I haven't gotten started on it yet. Like I said, I'm in the process of wrapping up my EMBARK series for now, and I just hours ago got the proofread and edited copy of Battle Planet back. So I'm going to be hard at work on that for the next couple of weeks as well, and I have to record the audiobook. All right, Mike the Hunter writes, "You often compare Ben / Kylo's atonement through the death of Anakin and Vader. This is a Western trope, and it's one that I believe has run its course. Agent Kallus in Rebels shows us that someone who has committed evil acts still has a chance to change and live. Just my thoughts." Yeah, I can see that. I mean, certainly it wasn't the route that they went in the sequel trilogy. I didn't have a problem with it because it does harken back to what we've seen in the movies that came before it. But you're absolutely correct. And Agent Kallus, they've shown that. Certainly shown that in the Book of Boba Fett as well. So I think this is a newer trend. And I've heard some people, what show was I listening to? I think it was Sith Council with Christian Harloff. They were talking about The Acolyte. Apparently, The Acolyte was supposed to start filming in May, and it's now been pushed to October. I was reading a report from Bespin Bulletin about that as well. But they were kind of joking around that they didn't want to see that. Like, they didn't want to see the Acolyte being a dark side figure in that series and then suddenly, finding the light at the end. But art is subjective that way, and everybody wants something a little bit different, right? Irene Davis writes, Happy Easter to you and your family. Thank you very much. Says they haven't been listening for a while, personal circumstances. But now, here being in the UK, they find their old family friend again, and that makes sense of my Star Wars world for me and contents and hope for the future. Okay. Reylo is a big deal to me. Okay. She goes on to write, whilst a Star Wars fan all my life, it's Reylo that has really gotten me invested again. It's the dyad fully formed and blooming with endless possibilities for the future of Star Wars that has me invested with bated breath for Reylo with its implications. Adam Driver says he wants to come back if Daisy Ridley comes along and a good director. In the fanfic kingdom, so much excellent content is written that it could have the most significant potential for the dyad. To me, the dyad is the future of Star Wars. Its continuation will guarantee a legion of fans for years to come. The books that have been published in the New York Times bestseller list under Reylo, but for copyright reasons have changed the name of Ben and Rey, have taken off huge. And I'm not even aware of any of those. And Falconetti, that one's for you. There are Reylo books that are out there if you haven't found them already. Disney must be blind not to take note of that. I wish you would write a Reylo like you are explaining this now and publish your books would be huge. I'm telling you, John, there is a whole fandom out there that needs Reylo. It's a real phenomenon and it won't go away. As you said, to elevate them to a place where they are not right now. Please write for us, John, and let us know. All Reylos at present are in the desert of Pisana dying of thirst. We need that arc that you are talking about in canon, giving us substance and emotional depth and weight. In short, the story is incomplete. Their story is incomplete. I hope that my writing makes sense. Yes. Best wishes from the UK. The world between worlds is the way to go, in my humble opinion, writes Irene. Thank you so much, Irene. I appreciate it. Disney Desi, friend of the show, writes, I would throw all my money at Disney if they gave me more Reylo content. Simple. Thank you, Disney. I appreciate it. Friend of the show, Miranda Elisa, says, let's sit back and grab a cup of tea and crumpet and let things slowly unfold. Oh, and by the way, everyone go see Fantastic Beasts Secrets of Dumbledore. It is rad. And only a few weeks until Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. And then we are almost 1 month from Kenobi. Woohoo. What a time to be a fan of anything. I agree. All right, lastly, friend of the show, Severin. Love this email. Save the best for last, right? Here we go. Hi, John. Amazingly, I disagree with your idea for what a Reylo-centric Disney Plus series could be about. Exclamation point, multiple them. Laughing emoji. I guess there's a first for everything. Hey, you know what? What fun would life be if you didn't disagree with me sometimes? Okay, so hear me out, writes Severin. You mentioned a lot that you believed there are several opportunities to add deeper meaning to the interactions we get between Kylo and Rey in The Rise of Skywalker by going back in time again. Yeah, I'm aware. My argument is it wouldn't deepen, but it would potentially cheapen the masterful scenes that Driver and Ridley did together in The Rise of Skywalker. One of the reasons why those scenes are so awesome to begin with is the writers had to create scenes referencing events in The Last Jedi to connect and uphold what they needed to have happen between Kylo Ren and Rey in The Rise of Skywalker. If they, and I hate to use this word, but for lack of a better one, retconned the unexplored time between the films, they would be creating double references for every reference we currently think is from The Last Jedi. That's a great point, Severin. I'm not saying it's not underneath Disney to go and do that, but it is a great point. So it could have the potential of mucking up the character growth we believed was all stemming from The Last Jedi. Adding a filler timeline between the two films when we only have about a year of Star Wars time to work with. It seems like messy business, especially when many of the Reylo community is miffed, as they already are with Ben Solo's untimely death. From my point of view, Rey's almost complete fast from Kylo force bonding between TLJ and The Rise of Skywalker was necessary for her character growth. It's the reason why they first interact in The Rise of Skywalker. It hits her like a ton of bricks. I mean, you can just tell that she's completely gobsmacked when they force connect on Pisana. Her whole body goes rigid in preparation for seeing him, which she knows is about to happen. In my opinion, boy, I had a rigid joke in Kylo there that I am going to refrain from. It was good, though. It was a good joke, but trying to keep it clean, people. In my honest opinion, that only happens when you're expecting to see your enemy/lover for the first time in a long time. And in the beginning of The Rise of Skywalker, when they can sense each other while Rey is training on a rebel base, she seems legit shook. I don't think that uniquely powerful reaction on her behalf would have happened if she'd had many FaceTimes with Kylo in that gap time. When she shut the door on the Millennium Falcon on Crate, she shut that door, and it broke Kylo's heart. It broke all of our hearts. Which is pretty much what she wanted to get across to him. Am I right? Don't talk to me again until you're ready to turn to the light like you were supposed to do. Slam. By the way, that shot in the Last Jedi, right before she closes the door, looking up at the ramp on the Millennium Falcon, I love that shot. Just Daisy Ridley looks fantastic in that shot. Her facial expression, her stance, the whole 9 yards, just masterful. One last thought. The remaining unmined gaps in Star Wars time are, I believe, kind of sacred space and becoming more rare for individual Star Wars fans to cultivate their own headcanons. Like you just did, reimagining the story you would enjoy being told if they did go and fill that time gap between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker in an upcoming series. But that's the ironic beauty of it. We can dream up our own stories and fill in the gaps ourselves, completely disagreeing with each other, all the while but never knowing it because it's all in our own heads. If the makers of Star Wars never touch those empty timelines, our own headcanons can live forever just as we wish them to be. But if the makers do go and mine those gaps, well, our headcanons are just no more. True canon is created. And as a consequence of backmining those gaps, they risk the dreaded accusations of retconning the original storylines that created those gaps to begin with. But they have also created seriously good content like Mando, Boba Fett, and the Clone Wars time period of animated storylines, and soon to be Kenobi, so I'm not exactly complaining. I commend your imagination. Thank you. And ability to see multiple options for the future of Star Wars content. I would laugh and still be glad if they did go and do what you said. And honestly, I don't care what they do with Reylo moving forward because I know that I'm going to love it no matter what. Cheers, Severin. You know what? I can't argue with any of that. That's all great stuff, and I totally agree. And thank you so much for the email. I really do appreciate it. You know, I went into this episode thinking it was going to be short, and again, I'm almost at the 50 mark. Happens every single time. Hey, treat yourself or a family member to science fiction, written for adults but great for ages 11 years old and up. Buy EMBARK Book 1 today if you haven't. Ebook is only 99 cents. I got it cheap, just for you. Also available in hardcover, paperback, and audiobook. As Earth faces its end, the fight to rule the stars begins. Taft Guardia picked the right day to upgrade his ship when fellow pilot Keith Amaro arrived needing help investigating a cryptic message left behind by her late aerospace engineer father. Unaware that an industrial accident inside Earth's largest supplier of civilian and military spacecraft has set off an apocalyptic chain of events, they make a shocking discovery. As war erupts during the global evacuation, Earth's evacuees stand upon the brink of annihilation. Realizing the significance of what they found with the help of a ragtag squadron of pilots, Taft and Keitha might be humanity's greatest hope for survival among the stars. Do not miss this 2021 Tale Flick Discovery Sci-Fi Award-winning series. If you like your science fiction space opera epic filled with romance and action, then EMBARK is perfect for you. And to the parents out there, if you haven't read the story yet, and obviously you like sci-fi and you read, Pick up the story. You're not going to be disappointed. I tried to cover my bases and make them appealing to a wide range of individuals for young and old, and I'd like to feel like I was successful in doing that. The readers that have read the stories seem to have enjoyed them, and if you've read EMBARK and you haven't left a review yet, please go and do so, especially for the sequels in the series. You can pick up books 1, 2, and 3, the opening trilogy, which is its own story arc. You can pick that up for just $3.99 in ebook, which is a discount, if you were to go and buy separately all 3 of the opening books in ebook by themselves. Again, 7 books in the series. Book 7 is available right now for pre-order with a May 19th release date set in stone. And lastly, I am looking for launch readers for Book 7. So, if you have read the series, or if you haven't, and you want to start with Book 7, you can do that. However, I'm looking for individuals who will, between now and release date, read Book 7 in the series, and when the book is released, leave a review. All you got to do is email me, talkshownerd@gmail.com, and say, I'd like to be an advanced reader. And I will send you a free PDF copy of EMBARK Battle Planet Book 7. Free of charge. All that I ask is that on release day, May 19th, you go and leave a review for the book. So email me, talkshownerd@gmail.com. I'll also be sending out a request via the mailing list. If you're not on the My Nerd World mailing list, go to mynerdworld.net, and as soon as you get to the page, a pop-up window will show up. You just put your email in there. I will not use it for spam, and you'll be on the list. And I keep people updated on the podcast and the books and all that kind of stuff. I don't send out a lot of emails, just when it's necessary, so you won't get spammed by me either. So go to mynerdworld.net. Head on over to Amazon, look for EMBARK, Jon Justice. Pick up your preferred copy of the books. Really would appreciate it. It's your way to support what I do every single week. And again, if you want to be an advanced reader, an advanced review reader, just email me, talkshownerd@gmail.com, and I will send you a PDF version of Book 7, provided that you just agree. Yeah, just agree. Agree to leave a review when the book is released on May 19th. That wraps it up. I have to get to recording the audiobook for Battle Planet, and I'm going to do that right now, so I'm going to bid you a fond adieu, and we'll be back again next week. Thank you so much for checking out the show, and I hope wherever you are that you are happy and you are healthy and you are safe. Talk to you next week. Bye.
The Force will be with you, always.
My Nerd World.